there, Christine Glover here, USA Today best-selling author, but I wasn't always one, and I'm here to share today with you the first part of how opposites attract, plotting the emotional turning points of the romance novel. This is going to take a couple of different videos because it's a lot of information, and so I really want to make sure I get it right. There will be a lot of looking downs because I will be reading some stuff to you. Take heart, everything that I'm sharing with you, I will be happy to send to you via an email. I'll drop my email link in the description as well so that you can get the more pertinent details from me in an easier way. Basically, I talked about why I developed this workshop in my last video. It was based on a massive rejection I got from a publishing house I had dreamed of writing for, and it really stung, but it forced me to dig a little deeper to get to the story. So the good news is, because I worked my little tush off and got through my dejection and pain and despair about being rejected yet again in such a big way, I ended up selling a book to another publishing house, a book that I truly love and was very proud of and still am proud of. So that was my debut novel, The Mavericks Red Hot Reunion, which is getting rebranded and gonna get put out there again under my name. They graciously gave me back my rights all these years later. I just want to talk to you about what my turning points are based on. It's the Michael Haig story structure. I like to keep things simple, so the 6 pieces with the midpoint being very strong, those are kind of where I focus. There's other different words and terminologies that you can throw in there, and I do have them in my worksheets. I also use him, her as my pronouns, mainly because that's what I write. You can tailor this to suit your needs however you want. That's completely up to you how you want to incorporate this into your writing. And if you have any questions about that, you can also email me or even post it in the comments below, in the link, in the description in the comments. The information I have to give you that I've learned, that I've taught myself, that I've learned from other people, to tailor it to your needs and your subgenre's needs. That's the most important thing. Nothing is set in stone, and this is just how I developed it for myself, and I have since morphed and changed many of the elements as I've grown and changed as an author. So this is based on an older workshop, but I think it's still relevant today because it ties into the whole key word that was said in that letter that I got, that lovely, lovely, lovely rejection letter that said emotion, emotion, emotion. I don't know, about 5 million times in that letter, which emotion is the most important thing in a romance novel. I don't care if it's romantic suspense, action adventure romance, regular romance, werewolf romance. Bottom line, if you don't have an emotional connection to the characters, if there's not a strong emotional pull, you're not going to hook the reader. So this is really important and something I still struggle with. I still have to make sure I hit those turning points myself. So we're looking at the internal journey of the hero and the heroine. So this is going to be a lot of work, so hang on to your hats, strap in your seatbelt, stay in for the ride. This is a little bit of a roller coaster. We will not get it all done in one session, but we will get it done. The first part of any romance novel or any story in the romance genre is the setup, the hook. What's going to hook these two people together? And oftentimes in these particular stories, the hook is based on a trope, or an inciting incident, if you will. Like something happens that brings these two lovebirds together, these future lovebirds together. So in the past, I've always looked at the heroine as being 23 to 28 years old, usually inexperienced. That's not always the case anymore, but they're usually not like super, racy kind of women. Not my heroines. Doesn't matter to me if they are, it's just not what I write. The hero is usually a little more older, 30 to 34, more experienced and more confident. As they come into this story, her greatest fear is losing her independence, her freedom, her individuality, her dreams. She doesn't want a man, especially the hero, and a romance would just complicate everything that she's been doing to, make her life be the life that she wants to have. The hero is usually, his greatest fear is losing control and being played for a fool. He's world weary, alone, worldly. The last thing he wants is a woman to love, especially this woman, because she's a threat to him emotionally. And that's the key. We're looking at someone that is going to get past his locked heart and chip away at it and figure out how to give him what he's always wanted, which is the love that he miss and deserve. And this can go both ways. It can be the female in the story, it can be the male. It just depends on the arc that's the strongest for you. I'm just focusing in on what I picked up from all the category novels that I read, and I discussed that briefly in the last video, and you can take a look at that link if you would like to refamiliarize yourself with that. So in the beginning we have the hook and it's set up, and she's usually not attracted to a man like him. The theme is stated. He's kind of dangerous. He distracts her from attaining her goal, and her tangible goal is often in opposition from what he wants. Like, she wants to save her family farm and he wants to take her family farm. That's conflict. She wants to save the family business. He wants to exact revenge on the family business. So there's always some altruistic reason for what she's doing, or she wants to save her own business, and he's coming in and he's gonna take it over. Those are basic little, tropesy kind of things that can get you started in the story. And I'll talk more about tropes in the future. I know I keep promising that I'm gonna do that. It's so easy to look that up online. I haven't really spent too much time doing that. I may just go ahead and just say, hey, if you want a tropes list, let me know and I'll send it to you. With the hero, he's basically doesn't want to be distracted from attaining his goal. He has the power to make or break the heroine, especially in these earlier category romances. It can go either way now, I think. He wants to withhold the goal from her, but he offers a way for her to achieve it. Like, for instance, in one of my books, The Marriage Ultimatum, it's a secret baby reunion revenge story. He thinks that she stole from him. She has a baby. She tried to get a hold of this hero, and he just basically never got in contact with her. And lo, 3 or 4 years later, he runs into her in the wilds of northern Georgia, and she's got this little boy, and he's the spitting image of him. And oh, grandpa's dying in Italy, and he needs a marriage of convenience. And so he conveniently forces her to marry him, or he'll use everything in his power to take her child from her. That's pretty mean, but he was kind of a mean hero, and I still like the story, so here we are. So that's sort of like an idea for The Marriage Ultimatum, what I did there. In The Tycoon's Red Hot Marriage Merger, he is a bastard son of a very wealthy man who is thrown into his father's life after his mother suddenly dies. I have a lot of orphan men. His father is killed in a regatta racing incident, and her brother also dies in a regatta racing incident, and it gets him kicked out of the big, Key West regatta racing society, blah, 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 blah. And her parents are like, her father owns this company that's a shipbuilding company, and she's a geeky mathematician, Cassandra. And so he basically blackmails her into marrying him. She might actually blackmail, she might actually go to him with this proposal that we should get together, and I see you coming after my family's business, and I want to do everything I can to save it, because she feels responsible for the accident that happened. She's got a pretty big secret. Anyways, that's the Tycoon's Red Hot Marriage Merger. So the last thing she wants is this guy, and the next thing she knows, he's proposing a marriage of convenience to her. And lo, she's still a virgin, because she's been such a geek her whole life. She just hasn't gotten around to having sex. It's just one of those little tropesy things that works in this book. I love the story. I love how those two get together. In the first book in my series, the Hollywood Heartbreaker series, Tempting the Heartbreaker, the heroine Sabrina McGuire is arrested in Italy because she's in the wrong place at the wrong time, trying to help out her ne'er-do-well ex-boyfriend who's gotten her into like a drug bust, the whole 9 yards, and she's just supposed to be doing a big, comeback. Her brother's her director. Her brother calls his best friend, Rafe, who is a very hot Italian man, who is also a lawyer and a very wealthy man, and has this nice little villa tucked away in Tuscany to hide her for a few weeks until they can get the publicity storm to settle down. So they're brought together by her older brother getting Rafe to come and rescue her. And neither one of them think they're right for each other, but they're very attracted to each other. So they're brought together, but they don't have anything that they think they can bring to each other in the future. That's really basically the opening of the story, the inciting incident. In this story, I'm gonna try to read a little bit from it. So basically, here's a little bit about her so you can have some empathy with Sabrina. A female guard came into view. "You're lucky you have connections, Signorina." She didn't bother to hide the contempt in her voice while she slid the key card through the slot. "All the charges have been dropped and you're free to go." Old doubts resurfaced, and Sabrina's lips trembled, almost making her lose her smile. How many times had she been told she didn't really deserve the fame and fortune and acclaim she had received? People believed her family's acting dynasty connections had been responsible for her success, not her hours of acting, voice, and dance lessons. "You're absolutely right," she said, feigning cheerfulness. "I lead a positively charmed life." So charmed that her on-again, off-again boyfriend, Jack, dragged her into a shit pile of trouble and possibly screwed up everything she'd done to transition from child star to a critically acclaimed adult actress. So there you have it. Like, she's a really likable heroine. I really love her. I think she's great. She's not a spoiled brat. She's a really, really, really good girl who was just trying to help a guy out and ended up getting hurt by it. So along comes Mr. Tall, Dark, and Handsome, Rafe, and she's thinking he's going to spring her and let her go to her hotel room where she can, take a bath, get cleaned up, not feel like a, terrible person anymore. And nope, that's not what's going to happen. So here comes the big hook. A tall, dark-haired man stepped out of the shadows. "You're no longer a guest at the hotel." He removed his aviator glasses and shot her a "don't argue with me" look. "Nor will you be completely free. Not until Trevor convinces the media that America's sweetheart hasn't become a sweet tart." She moved out of the cell. No way would she intentionally jeopardize everything they'd done to guarantee a box office hit. Still, adrenaline spiked along her nerves as she considered the brooding, handsome man her brother sent to save her ass. Sure, he was her brother's best friend, but she'd only seen Rafe in photographs, and they'd never really met in person. The real deal, up close and personal, made her senses tingle. In fact, her long-neglected lady parts were doing serious high kicks just at the sight of the man up close and in person. Rafe Cavalli didn't just look amazing, he emanated power and strength and awesome sex appeal. Okay, so we got this little attraction thing going on. And here's what the deal is. She doesn't want to be attracted to him, but she is. So now we've got this little opportunity going on at around the 10% mark of the story, where they break into two and they go on this tiny little adventure together. They're starting off as orphans emotionally, or even really, like even in Harry Potter. He's an orphan, literally an orphan, until he goes to Hogwarts and meets his wizarding family. He makes her curious and awakens her physically. Her hormones come alive. She challenges him when she resists his powerful, charismatic, commanding personality. That's like really old school category. You can play around with that however you like. In this case, it works really well for Sabrina and Rafe's story, but she kind of takes the lead a little bit on this. My heroines are a little feisty. So they try to resist each other, her especially, using the reason and the situation that has brought them together to stop them. But her attraction threatens to overwhelm her. She's intoxicated because she's never been the pretty one or the accepted one or the whatever. A lot of times these gals have low self-esteem issues. That's something we can talk about. She's emotionally and physically vulnerable, and if she surrenders to her body's desires, she will lose herself, her goal, her dream, and she must resist. Meanwhile, this dude's never been told no. Now, in tempting, she is the one that's sort of like, I want, and he says no. Because he's like, this is my best friend's kid's sister. There's no way I'm going near her. Trevor will, punch my lights out if I do that. So it's a flip. So you can see how in these stories that we're writing, the emotional turning points can be flipped. It can be him resisting her. It can be her resisting him. I just, for this purpose of this workshop, made it him feeling challenged by the fact that she resisted him. But it can work both ways, and it does beautifully in this story. One of the things that is happening though, oftentimes with the hero, is his emotions are awakening. He's been through some trauma in his past, like in Rafe's case, his parents were like thrown into jail for embezzling, and the media storm was insane. That he and his little sister, his younger sister, were totally thrown into the limelight. It was a terrible time for him, and he'd fought really hard to regain his family's good name and restore their good fortunes. And the last thing he needs is a little media girl running around who wants to be tempted by, who's around with the paparazzi, because that's the last thing he wants. And plus, it really hurt what his parents did to him. He felt very betrayed. Nevertheless, he's attracted to her. What's he going to do with that attraction? And it's really important to understand that there's more than just physical attraction going on. He's drawn to her also because of her personality, because of who she is as a human being. He sees her being kind to his housekeeper's daughter, giving her acting lessons so she can audition for a play at the local church. He sees her being very kind to the housekeeper herself after she is injured in a cooking accident, which conveniently allows my couple to be alone in the secluded Tuscany villa. One way to give them even more opportunity to not be able to resist themselves, which does happen. And that usually leads to what I call the first turning point in the story. For me, it's usually somewhere by the end of the third chapter. Since I write really short, it's usually around the 45-page mark, which is about 1/4 of the way through the book. So basically, something happens. A kiss can happen, or in a more sweeter romance, it could be a gentle holding of hands or a connection. In a hotter romance, it could be like full-on sex. It just really just depends on your heat levels, on what the couple is doing, because the couple drives the story. Like, sometimes my people really surprise me about when they do stuff. Like, I'm thinking, oh, it's gonna be a little kiss, and next thing I know, it's like, whoa, you got me off guard there. So allow yourself a little wiggle room there to let the characters organically develop this relationship, not just physically, but emotionally as they draw closer together. So again, he's seeing her be this not spoiled person. He's seeing her be this person who we can trust. He's part of a project that she's developing on the side that is really meaningful to her. And so that draws him closer to her. And she starts chipping away at his guard. And that's what really we're leading to. Anyway, when you get to that Porter turning point, it's like they're stepping into a brand new world together. And they're now moving towards what I like to call the midpoint, which we'll start working in on next week or in the next video, because the midpoint is when they're all in. Before the midpoint, they're just getting to know each other emotionally. They may have already had sex, you never know. They may have only kissed, they may have only held hands. That part doesn't matter as much as how are they drawing together. Some people like to call that the fun and games time, like I talked about in the Save the Cat romance novel beat sheet that I had developed, that getting to know each other time, having like little dates, going swimming together, having little interactions, watching each other with other people, seeing those moments where they see genuinely human, good people and are being drawn toward each other. So those are the things that bring them into the moment emotionally, which is far more important than the physical part. The emotion has to be there. You know how many times I'm saying emotion, emotion, emotion? That is the core of every romance novel. If you don't have that, you don't have a story. I can forgive a little bit of a weak plot. I can forgive a little bit of weak characterization, maybe a blue eye turned brown or whatever. But if the emotion isn't there, if I'm not drawn into this, like emotionally, that I can empathize with the characters and really feel connected to them, myself as a reader and as an author, as a writer, then I'm not doing my job for you as readers, and I need to do my job for me as an author and as a writer, because I want to touch those points. I know that in the very first book I sold, that we'll be re-releasing hopefully soon, since I get my covers, that what drew this reunited couple together, got them closer and closer and closer to where they could trust each other even just a little bit more, because they were really hurt by events in their past, was that they had to pretend to be engaged again, and for their friend. They were mutually doing this to help their friend who was suffering from a very bad illness diagnosis, and they wanted to protect him, and out of that altruistic desire to protect their friend that had brought them together to begin with, they then drew closer together and they discovered new things about each other. So like, if you want to look at a movie, I always go back to An Officer and a Gentleman. I look at how the two main characters come together emotionally. And when they reach that midpoint, which is extremely amazing and also really truly mirrors the Black moment, it's beyond moving. So that's what you're trying to strive for, as you're climbing up that mountain to the top, to the midpoint. And we're going to talk about that more later. If you like this video and you would like to get more craft videos or more information about what it's like to write the emotional turning points, please subscribe. I love subscribers. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. If you have any suggestions, any books that you've read that really characterize the emotional turning points super well, author recommendations for me, I would love to get them from you. Drop them in the comments and I will respond, and I will definitely look up the books. I just hope that you like the video and that this is helping you, and I'm looking forward to going into the next turning points. Like I said, I do have a full-on worksheet that I'd be happy to send to you via email. I'll have my email in the description as well. Thank you again for listening. Happy writing and happy reading. Bye.